Welcome back. In this video, we'll be talking about how to find the range of functions. We've talked about how to find domain of functions. Now, we've talked about how to find inverse of functions. But in this video, we'll be talking about range. We have about 3 questions here. The first one is a straight line function. The second one is a rational function. The third one is a rational function. One thing you need to understand about range is that the domain of your inverse will give you range. That is, you must be able to find the inverse first, then the domain of that inverse will give you range. Let me put it here. Domain of inverse will give you range is equal to range. So let's start. Y is equal to 4x plus 5. The domain of this is all real numbers, or minus infinity to infinity. Now, how do we find the range? First of all, let's find the inverse. If you have not watched the video on inverse, click on the link below to watch a video on how to find inverse of any function. Now, from here, we need to exchange x and y. That will be x equal to 4y plus 5. Then let's make y the subject of the formula. That will now be x minus 5 equal to 4y over 4 over 4. Then your y is equal to s minus 5 over 4. Now, this is the inverse. So the inverse is x minus 5 over 4. Now, we said earlier that the domain of inverse will give us range. What is the domain of this equation here? You will notice that this equation here is also a straight line function. And we know that the domain of any straight line is equal to what? All real numbers. So definitely my range f is equal to what? All real numbers. In short, note that for any straight line equation, the domain and range is always all real number. So you don't need to stress yourself on solving or trying to think about it. For any straight line equation, the domain and range is always what? Real number. Let me clean the board so that we can move to the next example. We want to find the domain of this. First of all, the domain is that all numbers or set of values that will make this function here to be divine. And one thing about rational function is that for a rational function to be divine, it implies that the denominator must not be equal to 0. So the domain of this is all real numbers except what? Except 0. But we are not here to find the domain. We want to find the range. So to find the range, I need to do what? Find the inverse. So what will I do? I will exchange x equal to y plus 1 over y. Cross multiply xy equal to y plus 1. Make y the subject of the formula. That will now be xy minus y equal to 1. Y in bracket of x minus 1 equal to 1. And from here now, we have y equal to 1 over x minus 1. So my f inverse is equal to 1 over x minus 1. And we know that the domain of the inverse will give us range. Now, all we have to do is to find the domain of this. And this is a rational function. We know that for the domain of this, it implies that the denominator must not be equal to 0. So that means x minus 1 must not be equal to 0. X must not be equal to 1. So the domain of this function here is all real numbers except what? Except 1. So it implies that my range f is equal to all real numbers except 1. So all you have to do is find the inverse. The inverse will always give another function. Find the domain of that function, that is, find the domain of the inverse, right? The answer to that domain is your what? Your range. Now for the third one, let me clean the board so that we can start. Now, we want to find the range of this. I believe we can find the domain of this. Try to solve it out, but the answer is all real numbers except 2. So to find the range, let's find the inverse. We exchange x equal to y minus 1 over y minus 2. Let's cross multiply xy minus 2x equal to y minus 1. Xy minus y equal to minus 1 plus 2x. Y in bracket of x minus 1 equal to 2s minus 1. So from here, we have it as y equal to 2s minus 1 over x minus 1. So f inverse of this is 2x minus 1 over x minus 1. So now, we need to find the range of this equation, but we are going to find the range by finding the domain of this. What is the domain of this? The domain of this is all real numbers except what? 1. If you have watched the video on how to find domain, you know I got the answer. So my range here, range f, is all real numbers except what? Except 1. All you have to do is s minus 1 must not be equal to 0, s must not be equal to 1, and that's all. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed, please and please try and subscribe. Click on the bell button so that I can get a notification whenever I drop a video. Thank you.